My friend Tony Dewan, who builds a lot of cool stuff and who teaches web development from time to time, came up with this scale to measure the quality of a developer's work. He said it's what he thinks he uses unconsciously to judge his own work and the work of others. And he gave it to his students to help them judge the quality of their work and how it might affect their grade. You guys don't get grades in this class, but you can use it to help guide you as you work on things and as you shape your career. We may talk about this again toward the very end of the 3 weeks. This is the scale, and that's Tony. Does it work? Does it work well? Could it work better? And could it work elsewhere? So let's break it down. We had a lot of cat pictures yesterday. There's a lot of dog pictures in this one, although that's a cat. First on the scale, does it work? Does it meet the functional requirements? Okay, great. You'll probably pass. Outside of a classroom, you might not get fired. Stop there, right? That's where we should stop. Just call it a day. Heck, fire no. What do you think of someone who only does the bare minimum? We have higher standards than that for ourselves, don't we, Heidi? Gosh darn right. Next, does it work well? Is the user experience acceptable? Behold, the Norman door. A door designed so bad that Don Norman had to write a whole book called The Design of Everyday Things. There is no excuse for a user experience like that. It has to be labeled, and even then, you'll probably still try to pull that thing. Terrible. We do not allow such things in our own work. We don't just make it work, we make it work well. Do that, and Tony would say you'd probably get a good grade. Outside the classroom, people may actually like you. Yes, even you. The folks in sales and marketing, maybe even customers, they'll be thrilled. They'll tell you how much you've improved their lives by making your software that works and works well. Other developers on your team, however, may still hate you. There's still work to do. Could it work better? In other words, can it be maintained? Code is read a lot more than it's written. You write it once, but you and other people are going to have to read it a whole bunch over time if this is an application that lives on. So, put another way, can anyone else read it? Everyone else? Great. You'll probably get a job. Outside the classroom, maybe you'll get a raise. But, not going to lie, this stuff's difficult. It could take you much longer to learn how to write readable code than it takes you to write code that works, and even that works well. It's tough stuff. I've been doing this an embarrassingly long time, and sometimes it's still a serious challenge to take my code from merely working and working well to being readable by others. That makes it really tempting to get lazy and just ship your code once it works well. Learn to resist that temptation, and your coworkers and your future self will thank you. You're early in your careers yet, but have you ever looked back at code you wrote like a month ago and had no idea what on earth you were thinking when you wrote that? Really? No nods? Really? Come on, you ever look at your old work and can't tell what the heck you were doing? Yeah. Remember, the developer you help by writing readable code may be you. So, does it work? Does it work well? Could it work better? In other words, can it be maintained? Could it work elsewhere? Last point on the scale. In other words, could it be reused? Oftentimes, the same solution can fit multiple problems with only minor variations. The ability to write code in a way that it could be used in multiple situations is indispensable. Can it be packaged and shared? Again, restating the same thing. We often find ourselves using libraries that other people wrote, right? Well, what if we wrote a library and shared it with the world? We could do it. There are exceptions, but most folks who write libraries don't just do it for kicks. They do it because they needed to solve that problem for some project. They just took the time to extract a general solution from their specific one. And that's useful even if you're never going to share it with anyone else, because you can separate unrelated things. For example, suppose you've come up with some framework for writing web applications, and the application you're going to write is some kind of shopping cart. It'd be nice if all the basic crud around just making a website were in a separate file, maybe, from the stuff that's really specific to shopping carts. This is a really lame example, but you get the idea. Extract out the general solution so that when you need to make a change with the way the shopping cart behaves, you just go to the shopping cart part of it, right? So that's the scale. Does it work? Does it work well? Could it work better? In other words, can it be maintained? Can you read it? And could it work elsewhere? If you remember nothing else from the scale, just remember this. Once you have things working and working well, make an effort to write readable, maintainable code and think about how it could be reused. Your peers and your future self, and for the next 3 weeks, us, will thank you. Cool? Aim high. Reach for the stars, kids. That's what I'm trying to say. Reach for the stars.